people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Baumgardner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is our last look at this weekend's fight? Friday night, Alicia Baumgardner will be defending the undisputed super featherweight crown against former champion Delphine Persoon, her mandatory challenger, a former champion and a fearsome puncher. Fearsome fighter. Going head-to-head with the Mayer versus Ryan fight happening on the ESPN platform. This fight will be happening on Brinks TV, free of charge. As far as the fight itself, it pits a pressure fighter in Delphine Persoon against a pure boxer and Alicia Baumgardner. But Alicia is no ordinary pure boxer. She's not all defense. Not all the time, not always. Alicia's methodology lives somewhere in between the pure boxer and the boxer puncher. Though to look at her, she's mostly pure boxer, mostly. On the move, on the outside, setting up her shots. Doesn't spend a whole lot of time in the pocket. 30 years old to Delphine Persoon, who's 39, 9 years older than the reigning defending champion. Both fighters are orthodox fighters, leading with their left in order to set up their right. Alicia sports professional record of 15 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 7 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 16 professional bouts. To the more experienced, the more seasoned Delphine Persoon sports professional record of 49 wins with 3 losses, no draws, 19 knockouts, having only ever been knocked out once in 52 professional bouts. I think Delphine is going to be the aggressor and Alicia is going to be the defender. That's going to be the aesthetic of the match. It will be Delphine Persoon coming forward, trying to put punches together, and it will be Alicia backpedaling, circling away, and creating space, looking to get a clear target. In terms of power, I would give the edge in power to Alicia, that she has more single punching power than Delphine Persoon, but Delphine compensates for that with her volume. She's a prolific puncher, a busy puncher. So even if she doesn't have as much power as Alicia, she uses what power she has more often because she throws more punches. Last in action in November of last year, opposite the ring, Agustina Rojas, who she won a unanimous decision against. In that way, it's been approximately 9 to 10 months since Delphine saw action, whereas Alicia has been out a lot longer. Alicia will have been out a full year, over a year, the night of. She's gonna have ring rust to shake off. And because Delphine Persoon sets such a high pace for a fight, throwing punches in bunches and putting pressure on her opponents, there's a lot of room in there for things to get dicey for Alicia. That even though she's 9 years younger, difference in build, you will notice Alicia's musculature. She's very fit, very svelte, whereas Delphine is a little taller, little longer, and a bit more lean, resulting in Delphine having somewhat better cardio than Alicia, that she can throw punches in bunches for prolonged periods within a round and in a fight, perhaps more so than Alicia, because Alicia's carrying all that muscle, and all that muscle eats up that much more oxygen. Kinda evens things out that Alicia's a lot younger, but Delphine's got a great engine, which results in a great work rate. The edge in power, the edge in speed, and the edge in athleticism all goes to Alicia. That's what I think is gonna win her the fight. Moving around, creating space, getting off clean, clear punches that you don't have to look for. Where Alicia's nimble, light on her feet, and she can fight on her toes, Delphine is more flat-footed, slower on her feet. Slower hands, too, wider punches. She's known for throwing punches in bunches, but a lot of them are quite wide and can be countered. There are going to be lots of countering opportunities there for Alicia Baumgardner to get in with hard punches. Though still careful not to let it turn into an all-out brawl, a shootout with Delphine, because that's what she wants. If you're Alicia, you want to control the pace at which the fight is being fought, and if you're Delphine, you're trying to overwhelm Alicia. Ultimately, I think it's going to be Alicia that wins the fight with a few interesting moments, interesting exchanges. I like Alicia to win a points decision. Delphine can push her. She can definitely push her, but I don't think she's got enough left that she's going to win all those belts from her. Should be an interesting night, an interesting fight, which is said to be the final fight of her existing Matchroom contract, which is curious because this isn't actually a Matchroom show. Matchroom isn't promoting this thing, but Alicia is said to be a free agent moving forward beyond this weekend, so we'll see what she does with that free agency.
Why boxer? Because every other promoter out here is a scumbag. That's why. You know, you've got Frank Warren behind me, been lying and cheating his way through boxing for the last couple decades. Wow. Sued me for a couple $100,000 a few years ago, so obviously I was never going to go with him. You know, the guy's a scumbag. Calais Sauerland, you know, had me locked up.
Speak up, I can't hear you.
Calais Sauerland had me locked up in a terrible contract for the last few years, squeezing money out of me at every opportunity. Scumbag. Eddie Hearn, Frank Smith, you know, they did everything they could to try and make this fight against Conor Benn still go ahead. Still go ahead.
Why don't you fight Hamza Sharad, scumbag?
After knowing that they, that he was on steroids. Scumbags, you know. I would say the only promoter that I know for sure isn't a scumbag is His Excellency.
They asked him why he chose to go with Boxer and not the aforementioned promotional outfits. They asked him, and that's the reason that he gave. That Eddie and Frank are a pair of scumbags because they were still trying to do the Conor Benn fight, even though they knew Conor Benn tested positive for a banned substance. To that, Conor Benn himself responded. This is coming from the same tit that tried to blackmail me for $1 million to get the fight to go ahead. You've had numerous different promoters for one reason, and that's because you are a prize prick, and I cannot wait to knock that big Satsuma head clean off your neck. So what it is, Chris Eubank Jr. chose to take this as an opportunity to make all the aforementioned promotional outfits out to be the bad guys. So what's he supposed to be? The good guy? And I remember hearing that right around that time when all of that started, that Chris was actually okay to go ahead with the fight so long as they paid him some money. So you can't stand on principle now. You can't stand on your soapbox and preach about Eddie Hearn and Frank Smith when you were okay with it. So what are you really saying, Chris? What's the point? That they're all opportunists? You're an opportunist too. You chose that as an opportunity to try to blackmail Conor Benn. You ain't no different. You ain't no better. And in spite of what he said, that's not why he went to Boxer. I told you why he went to Boxer. He went to Boxer because Boxer and Ben Shalom are the only game in town that are willing to overpay him for safe fights. That if you go to Matchroom, you know the fight they want to put you in. You go to Queensbury, you know what fights they want to put you in. But at Boxer, there's nobody over there at Boxer. You know that Ben needs the bodies and he's willing to overpay. Frank Warren has declared that he's going to sue Chris Eubank Jr. over the press conference speech today.
And the bottom line of it is very simple. He was sued by me for a legal breach of a contract, and I was successful in suing him, and he paid substantial damages. Now, you know, what he can't accept is what's legal and what's not. And as regarding what he's just said, just so you know, I'm going to keep it short and sweet, he's going to get sued again for the comments that he's made publicly.
Frank, let me ask you, those comments were, he said you've been lying and cheating your way through boxing.
Are you not listening to what I just said? And if you carry on, you'll get it as well, because you're publishing it by saying that. So I'm just telling you straight how it is.
defamation, making a public declaration that Frank Warren has lied and cheated his way to where he is now. He could probably try to get him for that, though I don't know if he'd be successful. And I don't know the difference in libel from the United States' laws to the United Kingdom. I really don't know how it works, but if he were gonna go after him for something, it would be for that. Pay attention to what Chris said. They asked him why he went to Boxer. He capped off his inflammatory comments by talking about Turkey. You're not signed to Turkey. You're signed to Boxer so that you don't have to deal with Hamza Shiraz, so that you don't have to deal with Denzel Bentley. Based on these comments, I guess we can expect those fights to not happen. His creative response was little more than a deflection because no matter what Chris thinks about Frank Warren, Frank Smith, or Eddie Hearn, or Callie Sauerland, his old promoter, he needs opponents to make the kind of money you want to make. Big money. Ben doesn't have the bodies. He doesn't have the fights. I wouldn't be at all mad if Camille Zeremata, who he's going to be fighting on the undercard of Beterbiev versus Bivol, I wouldn't be at all mad if Camille Zeremata upset the apple cart for Chris, because Chris isn't trying to do anything ambitious in the sport. He's just looking for safe passage, refuge at this point. Whoever's willing to pay him the most money for the least risks. If we now know indefinitely that he's got no intention of fighting Denzel and no intention of fighting Hamza, then what excitement is he going to provide? I think they might try to revisit the Conor Ben fight. They might, but I'm not pressed over that fight. If it don't happen, I ain't going to lose no sleep over it. That's fine. So he might have livened things up momentarily at the presser with these inflammatory comments, but ultimately, Chris ain't got no intention of fighting no live bodies anytime in the near future. If it gets to a point to where Canelo's not offering you enough money, if your demands are that out of proportion, yeah, we don't need you around, dog. The Canelo fight wasn't for enough money. The Hamza Shiraz fight wasn't for enough money. A non-title fight that gets you $5 million, and that's not enough? Yeah, you don't want to fight nobody. Like I said, I wouldn't be at all upset if Camille Zeremata pulled off the next big upset in the sport, because somebody needs to. Somebody needs to get Chris Eubank out of boxing. That's the most we got in terms of fireworks at today's press conference for the upcoming Beterbiev versus Bivol fight, because you won't get much out of those two guys, the two guys headlining the show, the main event. I suppose that there's room for every kind of personality in pugilism, in prize fighting, the brash, outspoken boxer, the showman, and of course, the stoics. I appreciate that stoicism. The seriousness of their intentions is only amplified by their silence. They take each other too seriously to fill the air with the bravado that they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Ultimately, we don't know what's going to happen until both men are in the ring, and neither do they. Artur Beterbiev, not one to mince very many words, said as much on his social media, saying, I don't really like to talk much. I'll say it briefly. There will only be one undisputed champion. Will it be Artur? Will it be Dimitri? Artur's base style is a lot easier to digest for the casual observer, the boxing fan that's looking for an action fight, an action fighter. Artur is that fighter. Power is one of the easiest things to identify, one of the easiest things to interpret and digest as a boxing fan. Who doesn't like a hard puncher, a knockout merchant? That's what we're here for. 39 years old to Dimitri Bivol, who's 33. Dimitri is the slightly taller fighter of the two, ever so slightly. It's a marginal difference, really. Marginal enough, it really doesn't matter. No, that Artur is not your run-of-the-mill pressure guy. He's not your run-of-the-mill pressure fighter. There's a lot more layers to his pressure, a lot more layers to his game than your average pressure guy. That in tandem with his power, he's not to be trifled with, but I don't think Dimitri Bivol is in the business of trifling with anyone, let alone one as dangerous as Artur Beterbiev. Dimitri is here. It's to do to Artur what he's done to everyone he's fought so far. It's to beat him. Both men are unbeaten. Artur's 20-0 with 20 knockouts to Dimitri, who's 23-0. 12 knockouts. What he lacks in power, he makes up for in adaptability and speed. I think he's got faster feet and faster hands than Artur Beterbiev. I think that speed and that mobility will be the deciding factor. That will decide who wins. Notice more of a mean streak from Dimitri in his last two outings, doing a bit more to fight mid-range, stay with the guy. I think that's how he plans on fighting Artur. I think he knows he can't run from him, and he can't hope to win the fight running from him, trying to stay on the outside. Artur's going to catch up. The more ground you give up, the more he consumes, the more he will appear the ring general in the eyes of the judges. This fight is being fought on neutral terrain. Nobody really has any advantages, home field advantage or...
Oh, it's in Saudi.
Nobody's really the house fighter. So in a situation where you figure you can't just box from the outside, you have to stay mid-range to outside.
Mid-range to get in, put some punches together, then get back outside.
Mid-range to outside, not mid-range to inside. I don't think Dimitri's looking to plant his feet and just let him go on the inside. It's all about alternating, that pendulum step.
In and out, on your toes, throwing 2 and 3 punches at a time while you do it.
Artur has a pep in his step too. He's just as familiar with that Soviet pendulum step as Dimitri, with the difference being that he's 39 years old. Those are 39-year-old legs you're looking at. More importantly, he's coming off a meniscus injury. That's a knee injury.
So I don't think it's at all far-fetched for me to say that maybe Dimitri is lighter on his feet and faster on his feet than Artur will be.
Faster hands too. By now we all know Dimitri doesn't pack anywhere near as big a punch as Artur, but he is faster, and that can help to disrupt him, interrupt his rhythm
as he's trying to come on.
If you can put 2 punches together, stop him in his tracks, then get out of range before the counter comes.
Leave him swinging at the air.
In and out, on your toes, 1 and 2 punches at a time, consistently, round after round, throughout the entirety of the fight. Can win this thing. Dmitry Bivol can win a points decision.
So I have it.
This is a 50-50 fight for all the right reasons, because both fighters have been so successful and so dominant in their campaigns, you really don't know for sure who's gonna win. I mean, I'm leaning towards Dmitry, but I think you could find as many people that are leaning towards Artur, and that's a good thing. That the reason the fight is hard to edge is because both guys are so good. They're so good at what they do.
As opposed to 2 guys that have passed it, so past it, it's not a question of who's better, it's a question of who's got anything left. There are those kinds of 50-50 fights too.
This ain't one of them. Unless I'm mistaken, the winner of this fight will be the first undisputed champion crowned at light heavyweight in the 4-belt era, because before these two, I don't think there was one, not in the 4-belt era.
History.
No, it doesn't seem like it. But both of these guys have been dominating the light heavyweight division for close to 10 years now. Close to 10. Widespread speculation that the reason Andre Vard seemed to have retired early, when he still had good years left to give to the sport, was because these 2 guys were coming through. I saw a lot of people saying that. It's not the craziest thing I ever heard.
They would have kicked his ass, man. Oh, man, they would have kicked his ass.
Beat him up. No, I don't think the Andre Ward that fought Sergey Kovalev 2 times and got a gift in at least one of those fights would have beat either Artur Beterbiev or Dmitry Bivol had he stuck around long enough that he would have been confronted with them, because eventually he would have. If he would have stayed, they both would have become his mandatory challengers sooner or later, and I don't think he would have beat them.
Those would have been 2 very high-risk, low-reward mandatories for an aging Andre Vard.
And thus, the titles he vacated went to them, and they've been holding on to them ever since. They're the last 2 men standing. But there can only be one, and shortly, we'll see which one it's gonna be.